If you remember from last time, we looked at solving a system of linear equations using the first method, elimination. Now we're going to look at a second method, and this method is substitution. And substitution is just as it sounds. We take something and we replace it for something else. So substitution involves taking one equation, solving for one of the variables, and plugging it into the other equation. Now, in a situation like this, you can choose whichever variable you want to solve for. So we have two equations here. It doesn't matter which variable or which equation you use to solve for the unknown variable. Now, it's easiest to use the equation that has a variable that has no coefficient. So there's no number in front of this y. So that's the one that we want to use. It's going to make the math easiest. So the next section here, we're going to look at doing an example. Let's look at this example. So here we have solving a system of equations by substitution. Now when you're solving systems of equations, you're going to have to know the specific methods and know how to do each one. So this one asks you specifically to solve by substitution. So we have a choice here. We can either take the first equation and we can solve for one of the variables in it, or we can take the second equation and solve for one of the variables in it. Now, clearly when we look at these two equations, equation 2, or the second equation, there is no variable in front of this y. So that's the one that we want to choose and work with. So we're just going to call the first equation equation 1, and we'll call the second equation equation 2, and we're going to take equation 2 and we're going to solve it for y. So how do we solve this for y? What we're going to do is we're just going to add y to both sides and subtract 7 from both sides. And we can do this in one step. So by the time we reach grade 11, we should be able to do these in one step. So all this is going to make this equation, y is going to equal 3x minus 7. Now we've got this equation solved for. So now what we can do is we can take this equation, 3x minus 7, and we can substitute it in to the second equation. So when we do that, we're going to get this. 2x plus 3. Now remember that y is going to be replaced with 3x minus 7, and that's going to equal 1. But 2x plus, and we're just going to distribute this in, 9x minus 21 is going to equal 1. Now if we combine like terms, we're going to get 11x, and we're going to move the 21 to the other side by adding 21 to both sides, and we're going to get 22. So now, solving for x, we divide both sides by 11, and we get a nice number here of x is equal to 2. So hooray, we got x is equal to 2. So now we have to find y. So what we have to do now is take this value of x and put it in for x. So we're just going to put it back into that equation. Because when we put that in here, we're going to get y is equal to 3 times 2 minus 7, which is going to be 6 minus 7, which is going to equal negative 1. So our solution is 2 and negative 1. So that's solving systems of equations by substitution. Now, let's keep in mind that we can always check this by just putting it back into the original equation. So 2 times 2 plus 3 times negative 1. If this is the correct solution, we should get 1. So is 4 minus 3 equal to 1? Is 1 equal to 1? It sure is. Hooray! So now we've got to check the second equation. So 3 times 2 minus 1. Oh, let's just be certain here. This is a negative 1 is going to equal 1. So, sorry. We always got to go back to this. It's going to equal 7. So is 3 times 2, which is equal to 6, plus, remove two negatives there, 1, equal to 7. Is 6 plus 1 equal to 7? It sure is. So we can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's our answer. So what do we do to solve this? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing. Now, here is a second example. In this example, if we look here, we can see that we have two equations again, but we have one equation that has no coefficient in front of the y, and one equation that has no coefficient in front of the x. So which one do we use? Well, this is where we can choose. And in these situations, it's all about choice. Doesn't matter which one we solve for. So what I'm going to do is, I like x better than y. So we're going to solve equation number 1, or the first equation. We're going to solve that for y and substitute it into the other equation. Now this is very simple, remember. We're just going to take the y to the other side, move the 2 over, and we're going to get 4x minus 2. And now we substitute it in. X minus 3, and wherever there's an y, we're now going to have 4x minus 2, and that's going to equal negative 5. So we're going to get x minus 12x plus 6 is going to equal negative 5. If we combine like terms here, we're going to get negative 11x is going to equal, let's take that 6 and we'll move it to the other side. It'll be negative 11, and we divide both sides by negative 11, and we get an x value equal to 1. Now what do we do with that? Well, we take our x and we plug it back into this equation. Y equals 4 times 1 minus 2. So 4 minus 2, so it's going to equal 2. So what's our answer? 1, 2. Now what we're going to do here is we can do a check, but these numbers are really, really small numbers. So we can actually do the check orally. We don't need to go through and do all the work. So let's take 1 and we'll put it into this. Well, let's take the entire solution and plug it into here. So 4 times 1 is 4, minus 2 equals 2. That one's right. And if we look at the second equation, 1 minus 3 times 2 is negative 6. So we're going to have 1 minus negative 6 is negative 5, and that also is correct. So when you're doing the check, you don't always have to indicate that you've done the check, but you can look at it and just do the check orally, or just do it to yourself in your head. And now we know that that is our solution for sure. Hooray! And we're going to put lots and lots of circles around it to show we're so happy and proud we got that answer.